And hello everyone, welcome back to another Love2d tutorial. So this will be the very last tutorial before we start finally with our games. So first of all, you probably want to see how this looks, what we are going to do. So let me just open up a window for you here so you can kind of see what we're planning on doing. So we have a little character here and we want to make him run around. Just like that. This is an image and we basically want to load in an image and make it move. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to learn how to do that. If you have not seen my previous videos, then it's really recommended that you do, especially for the previous video, because it's going to contain a lot of topics we're going to use in this video. Alright, so if you want assets, you can come to www.gameart2d.com and just this link right here. I'll paste it in the description and you can get it right here. And yeah, let's actually show you what you'll get. So if you go here, you click on free download, then you just wait for it to download. Boom, it's downloaded. Now you can open it up. Then if you extract it, like I did right here, I just extracted it by clicking right and extract to. You will probably have the same option on Windows. If you don't, I just recommend you go to Windows or you just download WinRAR or 7Z or whatnot. Then you'll find a PNG file and you'll find all of these. Well, the thing is, I didn't exactly use these like that. What I use is more something like this. As you can see, it's just one image with a bunch of them in one. This is what I like to call a sprite. These right here, to me, they're images, but they're actually sprites as well. Now, you can of course just go online and find a way to add these together. I believe there is a sprite option or a sprite website where you can just go and create a sprite from images. Otherwise, you can just... Alright, so let's get started. Let me just close this browser. Now I'm going to just delete all of this because we don't need it. And all of this as well, which is very long. So we just plop that. And then all of this as well. Cool. Now, first we want to set up some of the core basics we'll need. And also, actually, I noticed I left myself a comment here. So if you want to also make the sprite yourself instead, which could be good practice if you want to make your own sprites, then you can go to this codeshack.io image-sprite sheet generator. And you can just browse images and throw them in here. This is what I used. I completely forgot about it. Anyhow, now here we first need to set up some basic information about the character. Jack, because that's what I like to call my character, but you can call main character or whatever you prefer. And we're going to make that equal to, and x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0. So this will be the x and y position of Jack. I'm just going to go _g.jack to specify Jack, or you can go here and you can say quick fix and just disable diagnostics like that. And this is a VS Code thing where basically it won't give you an error if you use a lowercase global like this without specifying _g. Okay, now you'll notice I have a sprites folder in my directory. So if I were to open the containing folder, there's a sprites folder. Inside of the sprites folder is a spritesheet.png. This sprite sheet is just what contains the sprite boy over here, Jack. Now we need to go inside of sprites and we need to access that. So for the character, I'm going to also give him another property called sprite to specify this is its sprite. And it will be love.graphics.newImage. And here we can specify sprites, as you can see there. So sprites, and then inside of it we have a spritesheet.png. I'm going to rename that and then just copy the text. So don't actually remember, just copy the text and I'm going to paste the text here. This will basically get that entire sprite for me. Cool. Now that we have that, we can go here to underneath Jack And here we need to set the sprite height and the sprite width. So if we were to go back here and we click on this sprite right here, I know, can we see the properties? It doesn't seem like it. If I click here, nope. Let's open up my containing folder, properties, and let's say image. As you can see, this is the size of this image. So 5,352 by 569. Nice. Now I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go here to my main.lua and just paste it there in a comment, because that is the width and the height. So I'm going to create two variables to specify the sprite width and height. So sprite width and then also sprite height. Now, of course, you could have also, if you wanted to, say sprite and then make sprite equal to a table. So a table within a table. Then you could have said image is equal to this right here. This is perfectly fine as well. And then you could have specified the height and the width in here as well. You could have done this. This is perfectly fine. But I don't want to get too complicated with tables because they can become kind of complicated. So for now, we can just do that. Okay, cool. Now here we can just say it's equal to, and now we can say 5,000, or we can just copy this part here, paste it here, and then just change that into a comma. And now this basically says the sprite width is this and the sprite height is this. You could have split them up into two lines, but I like to do it in one line just because it's fast. So now that you have that, you can go to the next line and we can finally start working with the sprite in a sense. So we need to specify a quad of the sprite's width. So a quad is basically, let's say right here, this one block here, that would be a quad. This would be the next quad. This would be a next quad. Now, they have to be equal widths apart, otherwise you might get confused and you might have a lot of trouble. So make sure that they are and whatnot. So here we can just specify the quad stuff. So quad width is equal to 669. Nice. And how do I know this? Because I actually measured this beforehand. This is 669 per quad. I don't know how to measure it, so don't ask me how to do it. I can't remember for the life of me. And then you have your quad height, which will be the same as your sprite height. Why? Because as you can see, all the quads are the same height and they're the height that the entire sprite is. So like that. And you could have also put this in one line, but I wanted to show you, you can do both if you wanted to. Now what we need to do is we need to basically specify for each quad. Now you could have just used a bunch of images like they gave us inside of the folder. Or if you use what I use, you need to do the following. You need to, for every quad, you need to specify. So love.graphics.newQuad. And here you need to specify the location you start at. This will change. The height of it won't change, but the width of it will change. So where it starts in width. So this starts at 0, 0. So meaning it starts right here, right there. And then we want to specify the quad width. Whoa. And then the quad height. And this will just specify the height and width to get it with for the quad. And then we need to specify the entire sprite width and sprite height. Cool. Now for the next one, we need to basically specify the quad width and everything else stays the same. And now we need to do it again and again and again. And you can already see where this is going. You're going to have to do that a ton of times. And it's going to be a bunch of copy paste code, which we want to try and avoid as much as possible. So an alternative way to go about doing this is by creating a quads table like that, and then creating a for loop. So for I, and then we can just remove all of these because we don't need it, is equal to 1, 2, and how many was there? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 of them. So 1 to 8, do the following. And we want to just copy this, paste it in here. And now we can just say quads at index of I is equal to this. But now what we can do is we can specify the quad width times I minus 1. So it starts at 0, so by default if it's 1 minus 1, this will be 0. So then it is the quad width times 0, which will return 0, because anything times 0 is 0. So just what we had, but now it has times. So now once this is 2, so once I turns into 2, this will become 1. So then it's the quad width, and then we have our quad width times 3, and whatnot. I can actually show you an example of how it would have looked if we didn't do this. It would have looked like that. So let me actually just do there. It would look like this. But instead of it looking like this, we used a for loop to make it shorter. So there's quad width part here. As you can see, it starts with 0, then it starts with itself, then it starts with times 2, times 3, times 4. That's what we do here. So quad width times 0, 1, 2, etc. So we just saved ourselves tons of time, because now if we just add another quad to this sprite, we can just update this. As simple as that. Now we want to draw this sprite to the screen. So let's go here to draw. And here we can say love.graphics.draw Jack, because Jack is our character right here. And we want to specify the sprite it should draw. And we want to specify the quad it should draw, so quads, and let's just specify 1 for now. And then we want to say Jack at index X and also Jack at index Y to specify the location of the sprite. Now if we were to run the, this is in Python, this is love. Now if we were to run the program, we get a massive dude right here, but that's a sprite. With every sprite, this will change because the sprites will provide animation. So if we make that sprite 5, we'll get this, where the foot is now moved. So yeah, now that we know we can do this, let's first make Jack smaller, because Jack is very big. So let's say love.graphics.scale, and we scale it to 0.3. This will just make Jack a bit smaller by scaling all of the graphics to 0.3. So now he's about 0.3 his original size. Of course, you could have also just made the sprite smaller by actually, when you make the sprite, making it smaller. But in this case, it's not really that necessary. We can just say scale it and it will be scaled. Next up, we need to work on the animation. And we can create another thing here, and yet again you could have put all of this inside of here. I just want to show you can make them different, but usually you do want to actually keep them in here. But that's not too important for now. Now we can also create an animation option here, and this will be its own table. Yet again, you could have made this into this table here as well, would have worked perfectly fine. Now I want to specify the direction he's going to move in, so if it's left or right. So direction is equal to, and then here we can specify something like right. You also want to specify if he's standing still or not, so idle is equal to true, so that means he's standing still, he's not doing anything. This will allow us to kind of give him a specific position. So let's say that's the idle position. So if he's standing idle, he should look like this. If he's not idle, he should be moving through the frames. Then we can create the frame, and we can make that 1. And we can create a max frames, and that can be 8. So these max frames is basically just the amount of frames we have here. This also means now that we have implemented this max frames here, we can go and say jack.animation.max frames instead. Meaning if the max frames here ever change, we can just not have to worry about it here. We can also change the speed. So if you want it to move faster or slower, and we'll make that, let's say 20 for now. And then we also have a timer, and we can make that 0.1. And this will just determine when the character should change frames. So the lower the timer, the more the character will change frames. Alright, so now that we have all of this, we can start implementing it. So first, here we want to say if and not jack.animation.idle then. Basically, if he's not idling, then we want to say jack.animation.timer is equal to, and this is a very long thing to type, so I'm just going to copy that, and boom, and now here we can say plus dt, and this will just basically be our timer. It will determine when the frame should be changed. And here we can then say if the timer is more than 0.2, then the timer will be set to 0.1 again. And here we can basically specify the character everything. So let's first specify just the iteration, so we can just see the character move. So if, I'm just going to say frame is more than the max frames, then we want to change this frame back to 1. So let's go like that and just say frame is equal to 1. Now that we have this in place, we can go above this line of code and we can say frame, and we can just make that equal to itself plus 1. So this will basically change frame every time the timer hits 0.2. And then once this frame is higher than 1, or higher than 8, which is the max amount here, we're going to change it back to 1. And it's going to start over. Now, instead of saying quads here, we can just say, and frame. There we go. So now we just specify the frame it's on, instead of an actual number. Meaning if we run now, we're supposed to be getting a moving body. And that's because this is if it's not idle. And currently, our character is very much idle. So let's just for now set the idle to false. So you can just see him move around. As you can see, we get a moving body. We can't really yet do anything because we haven't given him any way to do anything. Now that we have that, what we can do is we can implement key presses. So in the previous video, I did show you how to do key presses. So let's quickly implement that. So if he's not idle, then actually we don't even need to use this if statement. We can just say if love.keyboard.is down, and we specify let's say D. If we specify D, the idle should become false. So we can just specify this idle, and we can make that equal to false because this is being held down, meaning it should move. And then we can say else, let's go else if here, and we can copy this, paste it here, and we can make this equal to A, and we'll do the same thing. So both of these will do exactly the same thing for right now. And in here we can just say true, and if none of them are like that, we can just say else, copy this and make it equal to true again, like that. So now if we run this, we can make him move by specifying or by pressing A and D. But you'll notice he doesn't go back to the idle frame. That is because we need to set the idle frame. So when this doesn't get clicked, we should set the idle frame. So basically here we can say frame is equal to and we can just specify 1. Because if we're not going to press it, we can just say 1, because then by default it will be that 1. As you can see, it now goes back to its idle frame. Pretty simple. So yeah, so if none of these 2 buttons are clicked, then we're just going to set him to idle and set his frame to 1. We can maybe go here, and here we say the direction at right. So we can get the direction, and here we can say Ctrl C and just change this to direction, and we can make this equal to right. And here we can make it equal to left. Now I can use this direction here to specify where the character should be moving to. So if the direction, go like that, is right. So if the direction is equal to right, then we want to change the character's go to. So we can say Jack dot x, because we want to change the x position of Jack, is equal to Jack.x plus, and we can say just paste that, or damn it, Jack.animation.speed. So basically it will move further to one side depending on, well, don't do that, depending on the speed we put here. Cool. Now we want to check if it's left as well. So here we can say else, and we just copy this if statement, paste it here, but now we can make this if it's left, and we can say minus, like that. Now if we were to run this, you'll notice we can move forward and we can move backwards. That's pretty neat. If we want them to move forward or backwards faster or slower, then here we can make that 30. That will make it move forward or backwards faster, as you can see here. So the more you make this, the more you increase this, the faster he'll move. So as you can see, now he's running. I don't really have enough frames to cover him running that fast. Interesting. Also, I forgot to mention, if you're seeing a very bad frame rate on your end, just take that I am filming at 15 frames per second, so you might see bad frames compared to what I see. Anyhow, now that we have that, we can start making the character switch which way it's looking at towards, because currently the character just runs forward backwards. Like, it's not normal to run backwards like that. So we need to make the character start looking forward. So I'm just going to turn down the speed here to something like 20 again. Now here we can basically just get the direction. So I'm going to just copy this if else statement. And now we can just draw the character. And we just actually do an else here, we don't need the rest. Now we can just draw the character to the location we want it to. So if it's right, we can just draw him as normal. But if it's left, we have to do a little extra to make him turn, because currently he doesn't turn. So we have to flip him, because here he's only facing one way. So we need to kind of flip him around to make him face the other way. So right here, after you specify the Y position, you can specify 0, -1, 1, quad width, and 0. Now you might be wondering, what are all of these numbers? So this first 0 here, this specifies the radius, or the radians, not the radius. This will make the character, maybe let's say, flip himself. So instead of looking like that, he's facing upwards or facing downwards. That's this part right here, that's the radians. This part right here is the scale factor to the x-axis and the scale factor to the y-axis. So this will make him flip other way around. This right here is the offset, as well as this. This is just to make him not look weird while we move around. And I'll show you more in a second. So as you can see, we can now face 2 ways. So let's start with the first part. If we go here and we make that 20, for example, 20 radians, not radius, but radians. Actually, yeah, as you can see, it goes crazy. So once we switch him around, he's facing a way different way. I find that very funny, actually. But yeah, that's if we change that, because that will just kind of swap the way he's looking towards. So whenever we don't press D, it's going to flip him around. This is just to keep him looking to a specific location. So if I were to remove that negative, there he's just going to look the same way, no matter which way we turn. Actually, no, he's just going to disappear. Ah, wait. That actually just moves him to the... Okay, very confusing, but yeah, that just moves him backwards. So I guess my origin offset, I got that wrong probably. Anyways, you can make that back to -1. But you'll anyways notice he didn't turn while I was doing that. So as you can see, he didn't quite turn either. So if you were to make that 1, he's not going to turn. He's going to kind of run the same way looking, just from a different location, as you can see right there. And of course you can play around with it, like making it 0.4, seeing how it turns around now. Could be interesting. See here? Yeah, now he just looks weird. But basically he's being flipped. So he's literally being completely flipped around. You can play around with that to kind of play around with it a bit more to understand how it works. But I'm going to leave it right there. Then here it's the same thing, but just the other way around. So if we were to minus that, now we will do it on y-axis as well. So boom. Yeah. I probably got to bring him down, otherwise we won't be able to see him. But yeah, that will do it on the y-axis as well. And in here we just specify the quad width to kind of get the offset and then the height. So these two aren't too important. We just need to put them there so it knows where to put it. And right now we have created a character that can actually walk around and do as he pleases. And that's about where I'm going to leave it with sprites. I'm not going to go too deep into sprites because for the following two games we're going to make, we're not going to use sprites. But I do give you a challenge to, once you have completed those 2 tutorials, that you replace our vectors with sprites. And I will see you all again in the next Love2d tutorial.